Israeli media is tonight reporting that special forces have begun limited incursions into Gaza ahead of an expected land offensive. A deadline set by Israel for more than 1 million residents to leave the northern part of the Strip has now passed. Tens of thousands of people have been heading south. It's now 1 week since Hamas militants stormed out of Gaza and killed 1,300 Israelis. The authorities in Gaza say 1,900 people have died in retaliatory bombing raids. Israeli special forces who went into Gaza are said to have recovered the remains of missing people and items belonging to others. World leaders, meanwhile, have been calling for restraint. The UN Secretary-General stating even wars have rules. A warning now, our coverage contains distressing images. Let's bring in our chief international correspondent, Ben Lewis, who joins us live from Tel Aviv. Ben, good evening to you. We're hearing those early reports about Israeli cross-border raids. What more can you tell us about that?
Yeah, Anton, good evening. The IDF says that its forces made a limited incursion in gather evidence related to the of hostages, and that they also took out one Hamas combat unit. But several reputable Israeli media outlets here are reporting that Israeli troops also discovered the bodies of several missing Israelis and that their families have now been notified. As you mentioned, that 24-hour deadline for Gaza residents to head to the south of the Strip has long since passed. In its place, a new Israel says target the two main roads through Gaza that head south before 4 o'clock this afternoon local time. So that's in about 5 hours. Hamas claims Israel has already targeted a civilian convoy heading south, killing 70, but that's a claim that cannot yet be independently verified. Palestinians walk south, heeding Israel's warning to get out before the next phase of its retaliatory campaign against Hamas begins. Hamas told residents not to leave, describing the warning as propaganda. The IDF claims it has seen significant movement of the population. Aid groups among those going. Some hospitals warned they have just 2 hours to evacuate. Leaflets dropped by Israel instructing civilians to leave, declaring Gaza City will be a battlefield. This is what the densely populated area looks like after a week of near constant bombing. Benjamin Netanyahu making an unprecedented televised address during Shabbat, declaring there's more to come.
זאת רק ההתחלה. אויבינו רק התחילו לשלם את המחיר. ואני לא אפרט מה שיבוא בהמשך.
The United States says it's trying to create safe areas in Gaza.
We mourn the loss of every innocent life. Israeli, Palestinian, Jew, Christian, Muslim, as well as civilians of every faith and every nationality who've been killed.
The Palestinian representative at the United Nations urging the Secretary-General to step in.
To ask Israel to stop this crime immediately and to allow humanitarian convoys to go to take food, water, medicine, to have electricity, fuel, in order to save lives.
Antonio Guterres also calling for restraint.
Even wars have rules. International humanitarian law and human rights law must be respected and upheld. Civilians must be protected and also never use the shields.
But there's little the UN can do. Israel is determined to wipe Hamas out, despite the risk to civilians a ground campaign in Gaza poses. Hamas, which does not recognise Israel's right to exist, is designated a terrorist organisation by many countries, including Australia.
We are going to destroy Hamas infrastructures, Hamas headquarters, Hamas military establishment, and take this phenomena out of Gaza and out of the earth. They cannot live among human, civilized people.
The US Defence Secretary on a brief visit to Israel, supporting an American ally.
and I know a lot about ISIS, and this is worse than what I saw with ISIS.
But with a gentle warning.
This is a time for resolve and not revenge, for purpose and not panic, and for security and not surrender.
In the West Bank, Gaza solidarity protests turned violent. 16 Palestinians were shot and killed in gun battles with Israeli security forces, Palestinian officials have said. Tensions also rising on Israel's border with Lebanon, with exchanges of fire. This live feed was being filmed by Reuters videographer Issam Abdallah. He was killed and several other journalists were injured. Hezbollah, which operates freely in southern Lebanon, mocking efforts to keep them from entering the conflict.
ولن تؤثر الاتصالات في الكواليس التي جرت معنا من قبل دول كبرى ودول عربية ومبعوثين من الأمم المتحدة بشكل مباشر وغير مباشر.
The potential for war on multiple fronts has seen Israel call up 360,000 reservists, while others have volunteered, including Melburnian Baruch, who has put his studies on hold to rejoin the military. He'd finished his service 2 years ago.
And it was quite a split-second decision where I knew I have to go. This was both as a human, just seeing what has happened in Israel, the slaughtering, the murder of innocent women, children, both as a human and as a third-generation Holocaust survivor. I just couldn't continue on with my life, go back to university knowing the atrocious things that are happening.
Many other Australians are leaving Israel. The first evacuation flight departing from Tel Aviv's Ben Gurion airport. 235 passengers were on board, including many children.
They keep saying to me every morning, I don't want to hear the alarms. I don't want a siren. They don't want me to leave them for a second. He's 3 and he's on me all the time. It's yes, I'm physically okay, but mentally we're not going to get past this so quick.
There are 19 known Australian citizens in Gaza. Getting them out, all but impossible.
We're very concerned about their safety. The ability of Australia to help them in Gaza is now very limited. And also the Rafah border crossing into Egypt is closed. So we support calls for the opening of that crossing, but we are doing all we can.
And there are a number of Australian citizens currently in the West Bank. The Australian government is looking at organising a bus to take those who want to leave that area from Ramallah into Jordan. Anton, some news from the north of Israel. The IDF says this morning that it spotted a number of militants trying to cross into Israel from Lebanon. They were killed using a drone, but tensions there continuing to rise.
Thank you. Ben Lewis updating us live from Tel Aviv in Israel. And as we saw in Ben's report, hundreds of Australians left Israel on a Qantas repatriation flight. It arrived at Heathrow Airport in London this morning, many clearly relieved to be heading home. Australia's High Commissioner to the UK, Stephen Smith, was there to greet them as they disembarked.
Very happy to be here, and we're very grateful to the government for what they've done and to Qantas.
It's been a long day, but it's great. It's great that we're here.
I'm feeling extremely sad. My heart's in Israel, very, very heavy-hearted.
In Adelaide, the Foreign Minister Penny Wong said more repatriation flights are being organised, with a government-supported chartered flight due to land in Tel Aviv today. She also said 825 Australians have so far left Israel and the Palestinian territories, and around 20 Australians are still seeking to leave Gaza.
We continue to work on onward travel arrangements for those Australians. We are also moving quickly to secure more options for Australians who want to leave Israel or the occupied territories.
Ms Wong also again urged Australians who wish to leave to do so without delay, stressing the security situation on the ground is rapidly changing and extremely difficult.